Today's episode is so incredible. My guest today is the one and only Tierney Shirrell, and she is the founder of the Live Bold movement, which is a community for Christ-centered women to come together and do business and life. And it's just so cool what she is creating. She has a podcast by the same name, and I met this woman at a recent mastermind through the Powerhouse Women community. And I just have to tell you, she has the most infectious smile. She's so happy and bubbly, and she just brings such a beautiful vibe to whatever room she is in. Stylish as ever, this woman is well on her way to creating an incredible movement and community of women who truly believe in what God's plan is for them and how they can contribute and live to their fullest potential. So enjoy today's podcast with Tierney Shirrell. Welcome to Ladies Kicking Ass, a podcast for bold entrepreneurial women who are seeking community and authentic connections. My name is Tanya Wilson. I'm a wife, mama, entrepreneur, and growth coach who is crazy passionate about supporting you, babe. Yep, the ambitious woman who is ready to call her own shots and create a life and business that she truly adores. The best part about this podcast is our conversations are real, raw, and unfiltered. We chat about it all. Our wins, losses, business, family, friendships, and how to get the hell out of our own way and believe in ourselves and our big ideas. I'm your new hype girl, and I can't wait to see what you create when you start believing that you can be who and whatever you want. So come on, let's get inspired and learn something new today. Welcome to the Ladies Kickin' Ass podcast. My guest today is Tierney Shirrell, and she is the founder of the Live Bold movement. And it's a community for Christ-centered women to come together to break strongholds and shatter limitations in order to boldly step into their calling and become who God wanted them to be. I love this idea so much, and I think it's really cool that you are unapologetically this woman. And I feel like the smile that you have and the electricity that you put up is truly because you live this life and you truly believe in what you're doing. And I think that is so incredibly awesome. Now, I know bold stands for something, and we'll get to that so that you can talk about everything and the framework of how you came up with those things. But Tierney is a hardworking mama. She is involved in all kinds of stuff. We just went to an event again yesterday. We met at the mastermind that you all hear me talk about so much. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yes. So let's dive into all the good stuff. But first and foremost, I want my audience to know who you are, not just what you do. Who are you?
I gotcha. Well, I like how you introduced how, it came out as, I'm just so unapologetically about this, but it has been a process to get there, and I'm sure we're going to dig into this a lot more because of how we met and in the communities and stuff.
Yeah.
But those are the ones that have really brought it out in me and helped me. I mean, obviously leaning on my faith, but then surrounding myself with people who just encourage that. And I needed that. And so I knew there was a need for it for other people, and therefore created it myself. Yeah.
I think that's excellent. Just like you hear so many times people saying like you are best suited to serve the person that you once were or build the community that you needed to have or continue to need to have. That was the whole birth of Ladies Kicking Ass too, is like I go to these places and I feel like I should shrink down a little bit. I'm not quite sure how I fit in here, but you get a big room full of women like that, even just with the statement of Ladies Kicking Ass, you're like, oh, my people.
Yep.
So I love that. And I love that you, like I said at the beginning, are very unapologetic about what it is that you're doing. It's a faith-based organization. It's about, family and making bold movements. Why don't you tell us what BOLD acronym stands for and why and how you came up with that?
Yeah. So bold is brave, obedient, loyal, and determined. And gosh, how did I come up with that? That's a great question. I really was just brainstorming. The word bold had always stood out for me because, and I think you can relate to this too, just always having that feeling of you're too much. You're like, you got the biggest, boldest personality in the room. And I grew up kind of just that would come out in certain areas. Like I was a performer, like a cheerleader. So I would love to perform in groups and things like that. But then when it came to like on my own, I would shrink down, like you said, and just have this total other side of me. And as I grew up and, kind of started to figure out, like, I never really knew who I was. I didn't have
Mhm.
that foundation of a relationship with God. So I had a foundation of growing up in the church, but never that like relationship with him. So it was, just a very long process. And then I went through a whole mental health journey of being diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder. And so it was like, I had literally these two sides of me where I would go through these periods of, very high energy, very, this huge personality that pretty much scared the crap out of a lot of people, including my husband. and and then I'd also have these periods of just severe, severe depression and, you know,
Mhm.
for doing all this self-work and figuring it all out. Well, definitely don't have it figured all out, but still work in progress. But now I have tools and but before I would isolate and just kind of go in my own little dark world during those periods and I would just have these severe mood swings and cycling and everything. So and it was just out of control. I had no resources, no tools. I had nothing to stand on with that. And so as I grew and started going to therapy and, getting around people who I felt I could be myself around, and my husband and I started working on our relationship and how we could, you know, be unapologetically ourselves with each other, and really start standing on our faith and having a relationship with who God says we are. And just years and years and years of work, I've have gotten now to the point where I'm like, yeah, we need to not be going through this by ourselves. We need to not be
Mhm.
uh, ashamed of anything we have gone through or are going through, and yeah, just wanted to create this community, encouraging other women to be able to step into that, whatever that is, and get rid of those strongholds. Like for me, it was the mental health struggles and stuff. And so I'm obviously going to resonate a lot with those type of women, but everybody has something that's holding them back, right?
Oh,
Everybody has, yeah. So I just really wanted to, and then yeah, like I said, so that word bold just always stuck out to me. I'm an Enneagram 7, it kind of just fits
mhm.
with who I am at the core. And then I really wanted to tie it back to a biblical basis. And so I just started, you know, love the little acronym, right? So I just started brainstorming and reached out to my inner circle on different ideas. So I got a few from them, and yeah, we figured it out.
That is so incredible. So you have a community that is based around this whole framework that you have.
Yep.
What do members of your community receive by being part of a faith-based community? Why do you think that's important for women?
I think it's so important because they, number one, have like this foundation, so like you mentioned the framework. Yes, I have the bold acronym, and those are like the characteristics, the different things that we want to embody. And
Mhm.
then I have the framework, which are like the 7 F's, which foundation of faith. And then the seven are family, freedom, finances, pharmaceuticals, which is with an F, the plants over pills, fitness, food, and fun. And so those are like the different components, the different pillars, I guess, that and I'm still working on it. It's we're a brand
I love
new,
it.
literally just launched in January. So this is like a whole brand new thing that's been growing and evolving as we meet each time. And I think the the thing that's so important is they're coming in and they're getting what I call prayer powered personal growth. So they're going on the personal growth journey and then they're surrounding themselves with women who are on the journey with them, and then have a biblical foundation of how to do that. And that's whether they're stepping into a business, or we have people who are launching a blog or writing a book, and we have some who are just stepping into full-time motherhood or have a big fitness goal or something. So it's not just on their businesses. And that's kind of been an evolution of it starting, that we need personal growth and development no matter what stage we are in life. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so
I think too, with you being so open and vulnerable, thank you about the mental health struggles with thing. I think a lot of women really struggle, and I know I do with that too. Even like I had postpartum so bad after I had my first baby. And it truly feels to me like a little bit of my brain was rewired a little bit
mm,
during that time because it was so painful that it's almost like a PTSD situation too. I laugh because it makes me nervous,
yeah,
but it is like something that it's almost like you feel there's something wrong with you because of that. And I truly want women to know, and even I have to tell myself this too, is that knowing that there is a mental health situation doesn't mean that you have issues, and it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. You just
yeah,
need some different tools. You may, not be what people consider norm, but like, what the hell is that anymore? Anyways, it's
right,
truly about being able to be in tune with yourself and be okay with yourself and know that you deep down are a good person. And then there's not just something wrong with you. So thank you for sharing that with
yeah,
everyone on here, because I know that can be a tough thing to talk about, but I think it can be very powerful. And I think it can be powerful for the community of Ladies Kicking Ass and even Live Bold movement, because we're being vulnerable enough to saying, it's not just this pretty thing that you come to every week or that you listen to on the podcast. Like, there was a lot of stuff that went into this, and it's still happening all the time. It's not just the pretty Instagram reel. It's like the dirty behind everything too, that grittiness. It produces the grittiness that I think so many people can relate to. So I love that. Thank you.
absolutely.
You are also a hardworking mama of three. How old are your kiddos?
They are 14, 11, but she will turn 12 like in a month, and 8. So, yep.
That's a busy time frame. I have 3 out of the 5 in that too. So 4
Yep.
out of the 5 in that too. So
Yep.
why do you feel that the personal development journey that you're on is so important for your family? Why is it important for moms to invest in themselves in the personal development thing? I think we justify like the professional development as like, I can like look at a ticker chart and I can see exactly where I've excelled because I took this course and now I know how to do finances or marketing or sales or something better. But when it's a personal development thing, it's like you don't have those check boxes. Like, you can't put it on a chart and measure what it's doing for your family. So how do you justify not only the cost of doing that, but taking time away from your family to essentially help your family by working on yourself?
Yeah. Oh, such a great question. And I think I have kind of a unique perspective because I started my personal growth journey while I was a full-time mom. So I come from a background of accounting, finance. I'm a CPA, and left an almost six-figure job to have my first baby 14 years ago. And never in a million years would anybody who knew me, including myself, think I would have taken that route. And I don't even use the word stay at home mom, because I'm like, what mom stays at home? Nobody. And it's literally the
You're
hardest job.
always doing stuff.
Right? Yes. And yeah, and so I started, I mean, I did get into network marketing, and so I have that as like one stream of income kind of on the side. And um but I really got into the personal development world for myself. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew I did not want to go back to a corporate job. Like,
Yeah.
the the accounting thing was, I was really good at it, but I did not have any passion for it at all. And some people do. That's awesome. Like I more than happy. I'm not like knocking the corporate job or anything like that, but it was not for me. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I think it's so important just because you learn so much about yourself and then you can come back and implement that. And obviously, we have a shared mentor, through Powerhouse Women and Lindsay Schwartz, and she always talks about becoming who you're becoming, right? And that's what I've started doing in my group is, becoming all that God created you to be. And there's no end time on that. It
No.
literally is a constant work in progress all the time. And I feel like my kids are old enough now that they're actually seeing the differences
Mhm.
that happens. They see me come back and just have this renewed energy when, like we go on a mastermind retreat and I'm gone for a few days. And yes, it's really hard because it's all on my husband and he's here with all three of them and doing all the things, but then they come back and they see that I start making these little changes or I just have, you know, this renewed energy to be a better mom to them. And
Yeah.
they see you stepping into things. And um I think it's important that they still know they're my priority, above any business things that I pursue through this, but they're also seeing that I'm truly just becoming a little bit better through all of these experiences. So,
Absolutely. I love the phrase that most kids learn what's caught versus taught. Meaning, like, they see what you're doing. You can tell them, do this. And then they look at you like, well, why aren't you doing that? Or you told me not to do this. And here you are over here doing this, Like Ed Milet says that a lot. Like things are caught, not taught to people. And
yep,
it's so much easier to watch and learn than it is to even listen and learn because you have to learn to apply it. Where watching it, it's already being applied and you're seeing it happen. So I know for me going to those events and things like that, like I just come back and feel like just a better human. Like,
yes,
oh my gosh, like the possibilities and things like that. I think in motherhood, there's so many times where you feel like you don't feel like you're doing a ton of stuff and there's like this much notice of any of this happening. Which, as
yep,
mothers, a lot of that we put on ourselves because we
yeah,
just want to be the best that we can be at what we do. I know I do that to myself, but I think it's incredible to celebrate and show our kids what's possible. I
yeah.
don't know about you. Did you grow up with people doing things like what you're doing right now as a role model for you to see that it existed?
Nope, not at all. I grew
Yeah.
up in the Midwest. It was, and nothing like again to, they did the best they could. And, I grew up in a loving family and, they my dad worked three jobs at one point to, be, because my mom was a
Mhm.
full-time mom with us for several years and stuff. But, it's just there's that mentality. And I think it's a generational thing too, just from what they come from, where, you work hard, you go to college, you get a job, you stay there for 40 years, you retire, save for retirement, it's like checking all the boxes. And
Yeah.
so, but I was like, I can look back now and be like, well, no wonder none of that stuff, lit me up or brought me joy. I was never meant for that. So,
Yes.
yeah, we
Yeah.
escaped the Midwest mentality and the physical location. Thank you, God, for
Yes.
yes. So,
I agree with that. I'm like, Wyoming will always in my heart be my home because I love it so much, but God, I never want to live there again.
yep. Illinois for me. And yeah, I do not want to go back.
Yeah. Yes, yes. I think that is so incredible. And that's one of the biggest motivators. And I want to hear from you too, your feedback on this. One of my biggest motivators is for my kids to be able to see what I'm doing
Mhm.
and the fact that I'm continuously trying to be better at doing those things. I definitely didn't grow up in that either. Like all the women where I grew up at were stay at home moms, work at home moms.
Yep.
Um, they didn't have outside jobs. That's what we should start saying.
There you go.
But
Yeah.
I mean, even for the longest time, it was almost like a shun of like, what are you doing? I'm still not quite sure if half of them still know what it is that I'm doing, or understand, especially when you get into this online world. People are like, you're doing, oh, that's cute, but oh, you have a cute little show, you know? And I know
Yes.
Lindsay's talked about that before too, that I think it's so funny. I think it's just that mentality, you know, that they, for so long, it was like, go to college, get a job, do this, do this, do this. And I was like,
Yep.
oh, but I don't want to do that. I don't
Yep.
want to do that anymore, you know? I think
Yep.
being able to show our kids like there are alternate routes that does not make you a failure like society has painted. Like if you don't go to college, there's something wrong with you, or you're going to be the second-rate citizen. That's why I'm so passionate about home service industry. There's huge income potential in these places if you're
Mhm.
willing to put in a little bit of hard work. And even
Yep.
if you don't want to be the workers, if you can be the leaders, you can build a business and hire people to go do the jobs that you don't want to do. So I
Yep.
think it's so important that we continue to talk about it and we continue to invest and have those conversations with our kids, because if you're expecting this to happen at schools right now, they don't. It's still the traditional route to success is
Yep.
graduate college, get a job, you know,
Yeah.
save for
Absolutely.
retirement. I'm like, I never plan on retiring. I would die. I was listening
Seriously.
to an Ed My
Yeah.
Lap podcast, and he had Dr. Drew on there,
Yes.
and he was talking about, he's like, they were talking about addictions, but they were talking and dependencies and stuff, and they were talking about great like the drugs and things like that. Like Dr. Drew, that's what he's known for, is doing that stuff. But they were talking about even the addiction of personal growth and the addiction of working and doing all of these things, like what this means as an like an overall thing for people to see. And it's great up to a point that, you know, they're like, as long as you're not isolating someone else and that's what fuels your fire, fantastic. And they were both talking about how their wives keep saying, well, when are you going to retire? When are you going to, you know, when are you going to hit this bubble? He's like, I would die. Like, that's how I get. He's like, every time I think I'm going to slow down, I'm like, but I got to have something else to do, because that's where the fuel is for him in that area. And I think a lot of us are that way now. So that traditional route of things isn't always the best way to go.
Oh, absolutely not. And we learned that the hard way, and that's why
Yeah.
we're so adamant about helping other people now. Like my husband's a coach too. And that, I see that lighting and it lighting him up. And our kids see that too. And it's so funny because, we were talking, my oldest is just so brilliant. Like he's a very old soul. He knows everything about computers. This kid talks like it sounds like a foreign language to me. And he doesn't want to go to college. Like school is not his thing. He aces it, straight A's in honors classes with like very little effort, and he doesn't want to go to college. And of course, like probably 10 years ago, if he would have said that to my husband and I, we would have freaked out the way both our
Yeah.
parents are. Both sets of grandparents are like, wait, what? You have
Yeah.
to go to college. And we're like, no, he doesn't. Like he's already stepping into entrepreneurship and he's 14. It's like
Yep.
you like follow your path. And obviously for me, we are like stay in line with the Holy Spirit, check it out with God, make
Sure.
sure you're on the right path. And but it's like, yeah, there's no one size fits all for people anymore. And like you said, retirement is from like a job. I don't feel like what we do is a job. I mean, obviously, what you having a company and a
Right.
business, you do have, the certain responsibilities and things with that. But like, when you're fully stepping into like a coaching type world or
Hmm.
community building type things, and yeah, it's like, why would we retire? If you're not growing, you're dying, right? I can't remember where I heard that,
Yeah.
probably in a sermon somewhere, and I'm pretty sure Lindsay probably has mentioned that. And but it truly is. Like if you're not going forward, you're not staying still, you're going backward. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. I love to get other people's takes on that, because that's something when I met my husband, I would say that to my kids all the time. Like my daughter already has her own little sugar scrub business and she's 13, you know,
Yes,
like she
I
does
love
vendor
that.
shows. Like, it's so cool. And I have promoted this. And if you want to do this, I will support you. I'll buy your first set of stuff. Like, let's do this, because the education she's getting from running that. Sometimes we've been to vendor shows where we've gotten rained out and she made like $17 from her grandma, you know. But
Yeah.
and then sometimes she's went and made over $1,000 on a Saturday, you know, and I think that's so cool to be able to show them like what is possible. Do I think she's going to stick with that forever? Probably not. I can see it kind of waning a little bit already with
Yeah.
stuff, and getting the excitement isn't there anymore. So like, what else can we do to evolve this? But what a great thinking process too, of being like, okay, well, this isn't exactly what you thought it was going to be. So how can we pivot and make it a little bit different so it piques your interest again? And learning those things as a teenager, like you said, your son's looking into entrepreneurial things already too at 14,
Yeah.
how much further along they are than we are. You know, I started
Right.
my first business when I was 27. Holy shit, if I'd have had that information when I was 13, I would have made drastically different decisions.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I know, right? And that's the thing. They're learning to see, like they see a problem. Like I know you were telling me yesterday about like yours was your daughter's like skin condition, right? Like and needing to
Yeah.
solve that problem. My son had a computer issue that he took it in and they told him it was going to cost more to fix it than it would to be buy a new computer, and that this one little
Mhm.
wire needed to be soldered, and he's like, "Well, can I just go buy a soldering iron and do it myself?" And he's like, "Oh, and now I could charge other people to fix this for a fraction of what this business would do it for," and it's like, yes, that's literally the heart of it, right? Of entrepreneurship or whatever business you're doing is finding a problem, a need that other people have, and finding a way to solve it. So
Yes.
sadly, I wish they taught that in schools. I, oh,
So
yeah,
so do I, but I think I enjoy, and I'm sure you do too, I enjoy being in the process of them learning how to do those things. I'm
yep,
not putting that in the hands of someone I don't know that is hired as a teacher to do these things, but
true.
you can have really, it can really make such a closeness with your child to be able to pursue those things with them and to encourage them to do those things. And it's teaching them to win. Sometimes they lose, which kids need to learn more of today. It's like we've put them in bubble wrap and said, you're going to be fine forever. And then they fly out at 18 and crash and burn and think they got to come back to the bubble wrap, you know? No bubble
Right.
wrap here. Like
Yes.
we want to see them fail and encourage that failure so that they're not so damn scared of it like we were forever. Like that was the failure was the ultimate F word, you know, that I
Yeah.
was scared of all of the time.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to be able to put that out there for our kids so that they don't have to feel that same way. It truly is just that little thing in itself so powerful to changing a generation,
Yeah.
that
Yes.
that doesn't have to be something that you fear. So we've talked about our kids and we've talked about our business and our own personal growth. So I want to kind of full circle this into the family situation.
Yeah.
You and your husband used to have a podcast together that was called Through the Fire, and you would talk to couples that have kind of went through some crap and
Yeah.
that they had come out, you know, their relationship had come out stronger on the other side of things. I love this concept of things. So many people now just are like, screw it, we're done. We're not putting in the hard work. We're not doing that. I have
Yeah.
struggled with this tremendously inside of my own marriage of things. So it's like the same thing just keeps happening again and again and again. And you're like, how can we get above this? And how can we fix this? And how can we use our past experiences to make us stronger moving forward? So, one of the questions I have for you revolving around this is when you think about personal development, say, the husband or the wife is really involved in personal development and the other spouse really isn't into it yet. They're kind of thinking like, you're drinking the Kool-Aid, you're on like the Tony Robbins voodoo program, you know, like what is this shit? Like
Yep.
you're jumping up and down and doing this thing and you're so excited and they're like, I see nothing. I see nothing.
Yep.
What how can you continue to do that personal development, one maybe without the present support of a spouse, and two, what can that do for your relationship even though they're not involved in it and it's not something that you share?
Ooh, yeah. So I like I said, I can come at this from several different angles because I've literally, both my husband and I have been on personal growth journeys in totally different ways. Like we've had the start where um, he was really growing, and we had, just a really, really bad part of our relationship after our third child when I had this severe postpartum depression. And that's literally what led me on this journey to get my diagnosis and, figure out the tools and how to manage that in my life. And through that process, he was digging into all the things that he had to overcome with just a limited mindset, scarcity view of money and finances, um, just a fear of the unknown and all that stuff. So, unbeknownst to me, because we were really disconnected at that point, and I was just, you know, get the therapy. I was in survival mode, at that point,
Yeah.
because I was postpartum to the point of suicide. I mean, it was dark, it was bad. And, literally the burden of all of our kids was falling on him. All of the providing for our family was falling on him. I was, yeah, like I said, just this in this survival mode. And so he just literally had to, lean into his faith 100% and just start digging into it on his own. And that's a hard route to go because he wasn't, getting involved in communities that were going to help him and stuff like that. So, that you can, like I said, tough it out and do that. And it can be a long, really hard process. And I don't recommend that. And
Yeah.
then you have like you said, we got to this certain point where, I had healed a lot of stuff. He had healed a lot of stuff separately. And now all of a sudden we were both wanting to grow and connect and do better for our family, for, the people around us, everything. And that led to us moving to Arizona. That's probably a whole podcast in and of itself. And actually it's on the one that we used to do together. Because that was a huge
Mhm.
refining moment of him overcoming that fear of like leaving that Midwest and where all the family was, and starting over and doing this whole, moving across the country. And we literally just picked up and moved. He did find a new job. He was still in the corporate world at that point. But that was a huge turning point for, like I said, us both to be on that growth journey. And
Yeah.
starting that podcast and talking about people, the things they had gone through. It's based on a verse that talks about how like gold is refined. And that's the reality, is like when you go through something really hard, really tough, really whatever it is, they talk about gold gets heated up and all the impurities come to the top. And so it's kind of like a metaphor for like when we go through things, a lot of the crap that we're hiding and or the things that we're afraid of or whatever it is that's holding us back, they come to the surface. And we have a
Yeah.
choice at that point. We can either, with the gold, you have to scrape it off the top, and then it becomes this beautiful, refined, like high, much higher quality, beautiful thing. But if you don't, it all just settles back down and it's the same exact thing. And you don't grow, you don't change. And yeah.
Mm.
And so yeah, I love that metaphor. It's so cool. And
That's
um
beautiful.
yeah, and then but then it's funny because then we also have, it's like, like I said, the whole Enneagram 7, I'm like, yeah, let's go for it no matter what. Then we kind of got to a point where, like I said, he had done a lot of work, but he was still in this corporate job and still had a lot of things to overcome. And I all of a sudden was gung ho into all the personal development and everything. And then I kind of had to pull him along with me because I think you can get stuck in the consumption of it. It's like,
Yes.
oh, I got that book. Oh, I love this person's podcast. I'm going to do their course. And then you don't ever finish them. And so that was a tough conversation we had to have, because I was like, okay, you bought the book. Well, now there needs to be an implementation time, or you did the course. Number one, you got to finish the course if you did it. And if you don't, uh, you need to release it and move on, and then put into action what you got from it, and actually take that and implement that into your life. And so that was, I think the biggest thing is just having those tough conversations and being okay with them not necessarily understanding what you're doing. one of the biggest things
Yeah.
we had to work through, it was, not just with my mental health stuff, with, what we wanted to do. It was, we need to accept it, whether or not we understand it. And as humans, and
Mm,
especially with him and being such different personalities and how I am, he wanted to
yeah.
understand so bad before he accepted it. And I was like, well,
Mhm.
it's not really how it works. It really, people need acceptance, especially in a marriage relationship first,
Yeah.
then you can work on the understanding of it. So and especially when we started to like make some really big investments in ourselves in a
Mm,
mastermind or a course or something that was a big financial investment. And fortunately we had, we just sat down and we had some really tough conversations. And I think that's the thing, if you're going to need to talk to your spouse who doesn't understand it, kind of just focus on like, I'm okay if you don't understand it. I just need you to accept that this is something that I really need to do for myself, and kind
yeah.
of work through that and be like, I'll answer your questions. I'll do my best to help you understand. But the reality is, you might not. At least, I mean, maybe in the long run or maybe down the line, but right at the beginning, when you're in it, they may not understand it. And that's okay.
Yeah,
So
and I think for me, that's a part that I struggle with. We sound like we're married to the same kind of man, by the way.
love it. Yeah.
Very much so. It's like
Yeah.
I'll do all the stuff, and then the analysis paralysis comes on, and it's like, well, I'll just learn some more, or I'll just research some more. I'm like,
Yep.
hey, but let's do something, you know?
Yep.
Um, I think that a lot of times we look at our spouse to be our biggest cheerleader or to be our biggest supporter.
Mhm.
And this was definitely a conversation I had just last night with my husband of like I was explaining to him like all this fun stuff and we were talking about like going to events and like what's possible and what's this and I'm like so excited and he's kind of like am I gonna be part of this plan? I'm like, I'm just shooting ideas off, but like
Yep.
it's already kind of like, what is happening here? You know? And for me, I'm like so excited. So when the questions start coming, I get a little defensive, like
Mm.
not a little, a lot defensive.
Yep.
Let's not lie here. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean you don't, like, do you believe me? Do you,
Yep.
and you can get caught in that web, which
Yeah.
I can do that. You get caught in that web because you want to bring them with you. And
Yeah.
you want them to be as excited as you are. But we really have to look inside ourselves and realize that this is a personal journey. That's why it's called personal development.
Yep.
And as much of it is that you do together, we have invested in like every Tony Robbins course possible we have done in the last 2 years. That's a
Yeah.
massive financial investment, first of
Yeah.
all, which is great. And we're applying it in very different ways. His big thing was to apply it to his fitness and his health and getting things ready. Mine is to apply it to building this community and the podcast and doing the things I want to do. And so
Yeah.
we kind of like butt heads when we try to relate because we're using it in different ways. But it really truly is personal growth on both sides that can benefit each other.
Yeah.
Watching him go through his weight loss journey and the things that he's done inspires me to be like, should pay more attention to this. And I'm hoping that it works vice versa on the other way around there. But we have to realize that if it doesn't, they still love us. And it, as long as they're willing to listen to what you want to do and be supportive of your happiness, it doesn't really matter if they understand what that mastermind is about.
Yeah. And it's funny because one of the things that we've, and like I said, not claiming to be perfect in this whatsoever, but one of the tools that we've been able to use when we're not in a heated conversation and we can actually be like, okay, I need to talk about this. And I need, like, there's all these different versions, right? Like, because husbands
Mhm,
typically want to fix it, right? They want to,
mhm.
come in and solve all our problems and be that person for us. And so it's like, we need to point out, like, before we start talking about something, like, okay, I need you just to listen to this and
Yeah.
just hear, like, or if it's something I just need to vent about. I don't need any solutions or what, or, if it is something that we do want their help on, like preface it with that. So they know like what stance they're supposed to be taking when you come to them about something big or small, and just be like, okay, I need you to put your coaching hat on right now and dig something out of me,
Yep.
because I'm not like a stereotypical girl who likes to talk about feelings. I'm not that person. Like I need somebody to literally like pull that out of me. And so but sometimes I don't want that. Sometimes I just need to talk about something that I'm super excited about or whatever, or even if it's something I'm super upset about, and
Yeah.
sometimes like, okay, I just need you to be the loving, listening husband right now and hear everything I have to say. And that's it.
Yeah.
No further interaction is needed. And other times, yeah, I need the full on, like, ask the questions, dig that, help me out here. I'm going through this. I can't figure it out, whatever. And so, yeah, just prefacing those conversations with okay, what hat do I need you to put on for this conversation has been a game changer when we use it.
I love that. That may
Yeah.
have been your best nugget of advice yet. For me. For me.
Yep.
Selfishly for me. So I
Yeah.
know there's other people that need that too. Definitely.
Absolutely. Yep.
So we've covered the family aspect of things. I know you have a podcast as well that's called Live Bold Movement.
Yep.
And I want to talk to you about it's a newer podcast, which is exciting. I want to talk to you about why you started the podcast and what you think podcasts can do for your business, either starting one or being a guest on one, and what that does for business or personal branding for whatever it is you're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So through doing the podcast with my husband, I knew that was something that I really loved to do. And
Mhm.
so it wasn't aligned with where we were going in what,
Mhm.
our businesses and things. So, so we stopped that one. But I knew, I kind of had like in my gut, I knew that was something I wanted to do. And so, number one, I think it's important to follow that prompting if it's, something you
Yeah.
feel really called to do, hence the community. But I also think so my community is local, and right here in Phoenix. And so that does limit
Mhm.
your reach. I mean, obviously there's plenty of people who can get involved in an in-person thing. You can have a huge
Mhm.
community, but you want to impact more than just the people who can meet up once a month in person. So I feel like that's just that way to just increase your impact of the message that you're giving to all the people who are there in person. Then you can get that message out to hundreds, thousands, millions, and in time.
Sure.
And it's funny, I heard a statistic about, like, there's like millions of podcasts out there. Like you're saying, like
Mhm.
nobody ever removes them, but most of them have less than 25 episodes, and they're like they don't stay consistent with that. And it's so funny because
No.
like a lot of people, I just want to just preface that, because like just saying people who are like discouraged by, oh, everybody has a podcast. Well, maybe they do, but are they being consistent and showing up every single week? And it's funny, like the ones I
No.
found that I super resonate with, I've found 2 to 3 years into their journey and gone back and like listened to
Yeah.
them all from the very beginning. And so I think that's a key component, is just like, if this is something you want to do and you want to get your message out to impact people, just keep showing up and stay consistent. And even when nobody's listening, because you know what, at the beginning, nobody's listening. And but I think it's important, because once, eventually, if you stay consistent and you keep going, it's going to reach the people it needs to reach. And I just think
Uh-huh.
it's a great place to um, get on and be able to connect more with the people that you've connected with, like we're doing today. It's an amazing way and then just to introduce each other to each
Yeah.
other's communities, each other's audiences and things, because there's just little nuggets, even though we could be in totally different spaces, totally different businesses, totally different stages of our lives. And
Yeah.
if one person hears some little nugget that we talked about and starts to make a change for better in their life, then it's worth it, right? So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and
When I first started this, I'd be like, 2 listens. And I'd be like, oh, 2 listens. And you know what? Like, as it's evolved, like I just released one yesterday with Jessica was on. And
yay,
I just released that one yesterday, and it was number 40. And the podcast for me too, I started this like a year and a half ago.
okay,
And then it wasn't getting enough traction. So I was like, that's a waste of my time. And I just kind of put it on the shelf like the last half of last year because I was like, I have other stuff that I can be more impactful on. I have to let go of this, but I was so upset with myself for so long. Like, just record the damn podcast. Like, get on there and give something for 10 minutes. Like, you don't
yep,
have to make it as big and crazy as you think you have to do this. So once I got over that whole analysis paralysis of everything needing to be
yep,
perfection, I was like, just turn it on and go. I don't edit these now. I love the fly on the wall conversation concept. Those are my favorite ones to listen to. I
yep,
don't like the highly scripted ones. Like sometimes you can just like, they're reading this to me. Like post the
yep,
blog, I'll read it myself, you know? I love the laughter, the funny stuff, the dog barks in the background, you know?
yep,
It's now it's getting to a point where like I just had hit my 1,000 downloads. And I was
yay,
like,
that's
what?
awesome.
I just sent it to my daughter this morning. I'm
Yeah,
like, because we've been waiting for it. We've been watching it, watching it. And I'm like,
yes,
how cool is this that it went into 1,000 different ears? And if
yep,
it helps one person,
yep,
it's a great creative outlet. It's a beautiful conversation that I get to have with you and I get to share it with everybody else. Selfishly, podcasts are incredible to the hosts that are doing them because they
yes,
learn so much from it.
I
It's like, I'm going to invite you to come sit in my virtual living room and we're going to have a conversation. Then we'll share it with other people and hopefully they can resonate with it. That's
yeah,
really the whole point and concept of it. But you can use it for marketing purposes forever. I'm not taking down any of my podcasts. They'll live on forever. Like somebody that's good with that, you ask them questions like, what can I get a snippet of this from you? How can I promote this? How can I do this? And as a podcast host, if you're doing that, give all that stuff out, you know? I think
yep,
so many people like hoard things and I'm like, if you want it, you want the whole thing so you can put the whole thing on your podcast? Great. You know, it
yep,
just continues to keep reciprocating forever and ever and ever. So I'm
yeah,
super passionate about getting more people on the podcast so that they can learn,
yep,
there are people that want to listen to your story. Even if you think your story isn't magnificent and you're not some big celebrity, you're probably more relatable the messier it is because
oh,
all of us have some stuff.
yep,
And so let's talk about that stuff that nobody else wants to talk about. And let's make people not feel like they're alone.
yeah,
Like the mental health stuff and things that you struggle with as being a mom. And like you're just supposed to be freaking Mary Poppins all the time, except we're not. We're people.
yep,
And that's okay. That doesn't make you a bad mom. That doesn't make you a bad person. So I
yep,
love being able to share this with you today and have all of those conversations. I think it's so important. Um, One last thing, I want to be conscious of your time here. I know we've been talking for almost an hour here, but what's
went
next
too
for
fast.
Tierney? I know. Where did it go? It goes by so fast every time. What's next for you? Tell everybody the best place to find you, how to find your podcast, how to find your group. Tell us all the goods.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a personal account on Instagram, which is at Tierney Shirrell. And then the community Instagram is linked through there. It's at live.bold.movement. And that is where, yeah, mostly on Instagram. And then we did just launch memberships. Yay, this month.
Yay! I
So
saw
it's,
that.
yeah, so the website is liveboldmovement.com, and it's a community based, it's through Mighty Network, so it's a community based, it's just a way for people to connect more and people who can't be there, in Phoenix. So
Yeah.
so yeah, they obviously we have the in-person meetings. We also have we're going to be starting the prayer powered personal growth calls. We're going to be doing devotional calls. We have a membership directory on there. And it's just a place for people to, we always get prayer requests at our meetings. And so we, put those on there. It's place for prayer requests and praises, and then people to follow up. And I always, that was one of my biggest things. It was like, we'll always sit there and be like, oh yes, I'll pray for you. And then it's like, how many times did you stop and actually do it? And then how many times do we
Yeah.
get, like, we need to celebrate the answered prayers, whether it was what we were asking for or not, if it was answered in a different way. Like, this is a way to keep the running, like, conversation going on, like, hey, this is where something, really awesome happened, based on this, or just people to continue to pour into that. And so it's just a way for people to connect a lot more, outside of the once a month meeting and outside of social media. So that way they can connect with each other. And as we've learned, like, that's the biggest thing when you're leading a
Mhm.
community. It's not, I mean, yes, you want them to connect with you and resonate with you, but more importantly, you want them to connect with each other. And that's the
Yes.
huge thing for that. And so the next big thing after that is I'm going to be planning a retreat. I don't have any dates on that one yet, but that
Yay.
has definitely been on my heart, and it's definitely, it will be in Phoenix. And so when I have more details on that, I will let you know, but putting it out there
Awesome. Yeah.
to, to
Let us know. I will promote that in our community. Everybody could be there. I can't wait to support you with that too. I think it's going to be really awesome. And there's a lot of people that need that
yeah,
in the world today. So
yeah,
it makes
absolutely.
me super emotional because it makes me sad that so many people are mad and upset and just, ugh, there's
Yeah,
so many wonderful things if you come from a place of faith and of gratitude. Like,
yeah,
I don't understand it, but I can empathize with that. And I
yeah,
just continuing, like, your smile, your presence, your everything is so cool. And the world needs that so much. So thank you for what you are doing for everyone right now. And in closing, I always ask everybody one final question.
okay,
So I ask all of my guests because I am fascinated with how people relate to the phrase that is actually the name of the show. So my final question is, what does the phrase "ladies kicking ass" mean to you?
ooh, good one. So, oh gosh, I would say that it's just your confidence, having the confidence in who God says you are, and
Mhm.
not being afraid to show that to the world. And that includes all the messy. That includes, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between. And yeah, just being real. That's, I think that was that was the biggest part of my growth journey was, I would change myself to fit whatever spot I was in, to make other people more comfortable and everything. And so it's just being okay with being uncomfortable, being okay with making other people uncomfortable, and just having the confidence to stand in who you are, no matter what situation you're in. So,
Oh, beautiful. It's it's so different to everybody, and it's like it's writing its own. That question itself is writing the book for me that I
oh,
promised
I
I was going to
love that.
share.
I
And
feel like
it's so
I feel like
cool
I
because
can
it's
feel it
all
now.
the topics of
Yes.
everything that will come together in this. It's going to be so incredible because it means something so different to everybody.
Yeah.
And I love that there's like this uniqueness of like, but the yeah, what's behind the yeah is just priceless. It's beautiful. Thank you so much, Tierney, for being here and for being you and for doing all of the things that you're doing. I'll put links to everything that you just talked about in the show notes. So you can check out our membership or podcast. Go to a meeting, go do all of that stuff. I'm hoping to be able to come do one of those myself,
Yes.
and see what your community is all about. I think it'll be fantastic. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. And yeah, I'm just so grateful I got to meet you.
Thank you for listening. Today's message was pure inspirational fire. I loved it so much. Hey, if you got a lot out of today's show and you think a friend of yours may love it too, please do me a quick favor. Screenshot the episode, post it, tag us at Ladies Kickin' Ass, or share the link to the episode. I'm here to help and support as many badasses as possible, and your generosity in sharing the show to your audience means the world to me. Don't forget to hit subscribe to be notified of all newly released episodes, and leaving the show a 5-star review is the ultimate expression of love. If you're interested in becoming a guest on the podcast, I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me a DM on Instagram or Facebook and we can chat further. There's also a link to connect in the show notes. Thank you for being part of our tribe. Now go kick some ass.